To tell us, Fred.
I haven't told you the whole truth about these matters.
If there's anything else, Fred, we'll find it.
You find her, and I'll be happy.
Today, 52-year-old Frederick West
has been charged with the murder of his daughter.
A man is describing murdering his daughter.
What you see is a cunning man who's living in a fantasy.
I just smacked her, which turned the door and went straight on the floor.
Fred was not on his own. Rose must have known.
But the clear instructions were that it was nothing to do with her, it was all to do with Fred West.
She saw no evil and did no evil, whilst, of course, living in the same house as a mass murderer.
Fred, you got that awful smirk on your face again. It's worrying me.
The case has developed from a missing person.
The 21-year-old student had vanished.
To 3 bodies in a garden.
Then I sort of asked him, I said, Fred, is there any more bodies? And his words were, there's a f***ing load more.
What we see are the hallmarks of the sadistic psychopath. Not 1, but 2.
You'll never get confession out of me with some eye up there.
You're doing it, aren't you?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know, I don't understand it.
You will in the end.
At first glance, they were just another working-class couple in Gloucester, England. Quiet, unassuming. Parents, but behind the walls of 25 Cromwell Street, Fred and Rose West built a house of horrors. What began with abuse turned into abduction, torture, and murder. What the police would eventually uncover beneath their floorboards shocked the nation and the world. This is the true story of one of the most disturbing serial killer couples in history. It all started with a missing persons report in 1994. A young woman named Heather West, Fred and Rose's own daughter, had supposedly left home years earlier. But her friends were suspicious, so were her siblings. She had disappeared without a trace. And any time someone asked Fred or Rose about Heather, the answer was always the same. She went to live with friends, but no one had ever seen her again. Police got a warrant to dig up the backyard. What they found wasn't just Heather, but a nightmare that had spanned decades. Fred West was already dangerous long before he met Rose. Born in 1941, he grew up in a deeply dysfunctional home. There were stories of abuse, incest, and early signs of violent behavior. He was in and out of trouble from a young age. In the 1960s, he killed his first known victim, his ex-girlfriend, Rena Costello, and possibly others. Rosemary Letts met Fred when she was just 15. She was also a product of a violently abusive home. But what no one expected was that she would become just as twisted and even more sadistic. By the time she was 17, Rose had moved in with Fred, and the killings began. Fred converted their home into a prison of pain. Victims, many of them young girls, were lured in, often under the guise of needing a babysitter, a room to rent, or just help. Once inside, there was no escape. They were tortured, raped, and eventually murdered, sometimes buried beneath the house, other times under the patio or in the garden. Over the years, at least 12 victims were confirmed. But many believe the real number is much higher. Fred and Rose operated under a veil of manipulation. Neighbors thought they were strange, but no one imagined what was going on inside. Their own children lived in fear. Several were sexually abused and threatened to never speak out. The control was psychological, physical, and absolute. What's worse, Fred and Rose worked together, co-conspirators in crimes so horrific it defied belief. Rose even took part in the abuse and murder of her stepdaughter, Charmaine, when she was just 8 years old. Once the police found Heather's remains, the dam broke. Forensics dug deeper. Literally, bone after bone was uncovered. Victims began to be identified. Linda Goff, Carol Ann Cooper, Shirley Hubbard, and others. Many of them had simply been labeled as missing for decades. Fred initially tried to take the blame for everything. But investigators soon realized Rose wasn't just involved. She was one of the masterminds. In 1994, Fred and Rose West were finally arrested. But before his trial could begin, Fred hanged himself in prison on New Year's Day, 1995, leaving behind a suicide note that read, "I'll always love you, Rose." Rose stood trial alone. In 1995, she was found guilty of 10 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She maintains her innocence to this day. 25 Cromwell Street was eventually demolished, but its legacy haunts Britain forever. Fred and Rose West didn't just kill. They destroyed lives, families, and trust. They remind us that evil can hide in plain sight, in a family home, behind a polite smile. The Netflix documentary reopens the case not just to tell their story, but to honor the victims who never got justice in their lifetimes. This was the story of Fred and Rose West, Britain's most evil couple. If you found this episode disturbing but important, subscribe to Missing Truths for more real crime, real people, and real consequences. Because the truth always finds a way out.